The sixth sense has always belonged to us, but we never learned it at school or from our parents. Therefore, it seems unknown. Actually, we have always known we have it inside of us, although we used to call it with different names. Whether you call it sensation, perception, sensitivity, or foresight, there is a sensor within us that sometimes warns us about an event or makes us feel as if something was wrong. You can't describe it in words, because no one has ever explained it to you before. But still you know that when you get that particular feeling, it only means one thing. Everyone could perceive it differently. Some of us get a feeling in their chest, while others may see a kind of flash in their minds. But the fact is that when it happens, you know it's not a mistake nor a fantasy. It's something warning you about a situation which is currently happening or that will happen shortly. It's the sixth sense. Some people already notice it during their childhood, perhaps having premonitory dreams or perceiving what someone else is going to say long before they speak. Others realize it as teenagers or as adults. It doesn't matter when you realize it, because the sixth sense has always belonged to you. You know what they talk about foresight or premonition, meaning the ability to know about something which is about to happen or will take place in a distant future long before it happens, or the ability to hear what others are going to say before they say it, like a form of telepathy, or again, being able to perceive if someone is lying to you or hiding something, even if you just chatted online and had no chance of seeing his face to observe his movements and his body language. These are only a few examples of the sixth sense. Today, we see the world divided into two parts, because on one hand, some do not believe in its existence and its various ramifications, while the rest claim their sixth sense has always been developed. But both sides are unaware of how incredibly advanced this sense is, being so much more than just a premonitory dream or a strange feeling warning you at night. The sixth sense has always belonged to us, and it's part of our consciousness. It was born with us. As for all the other senses, of course, we do not realize we have it. Thus, we believe that the only people who possess the sixth sense are those who live stronger experiences, such as seeing dreams come true after a short time with a very high precision or sensing the presence of entities. Hence, if we have never had a premonitory dream or seen an entity, we believe we don't have any sixth sense and that it's nothing interesting. Actually, the sixth sense is so much more than this. It's a combination of all our sensorial abilities. Just because some people grow up with a slightly more active sensory, we believe they have the sixth sense while everyone else doesn't. The truth is much more complex than this, but also positive. Who knows how many times in your life you've had signs of its existence without noticing it at all, since it belongs to you and it is completely normal to use it. For instance, your most visible ability could be getting a particular feeling about someone you just met, sensing if it's a good person or if they could harm you. It is not about appearance but experience. In fact, you do not judge their look, but you feel within yourself that that person, albeit beautiful and nice to everyone, is hiding something that will cause you serious trouble if you let him enter your life. You know it because every time you got that feeling, you were right, and the experience of many similar situations led you to immediately understand when that feeling is right and should be immediately trusted, or when it is just a misleading sensation. This is only a taste of the sixth sense. Or you may have a completely different ability. You could have had a wrong feeling about someone else many times, letting awful people enter your life without realizing it until they caused you serious damage. This may make you believe there's not a grain of sixth sense in you, and as far as that particular ability is concerned, it's true. Still, you may be prone to sense other events in a completely different context. For example, you may already know that when you go to a specific place, like a bar, you will meet a person with whom you had not any appointment and there was no reason to meet him there. Yet, in your mind, you feel like today you'll meet that specific person, and in fact, when you see him, it will seem perfectly normal. Nobody told you he would be there, plus it's not a place that he usually goes to. Yet, you already knew you would find him right there. Who knows how many times you happen to think of a person you hadn't seen for a long time, and then you suddenly see him passing by right in front of you while you're walking or doing the shopping. And how many times you thought of calling a person you don't usually call, and as soon as you grab your phone, it starts ringing, as in that very moment he has decided to call you. You can keep on calling them coincidences for all your life, or you can realize that the sixth sense exists. The sixth sense is an organ of your consciousness, therefore everyone has it, but not everyone finds it in the same way. Indeed, it can show up differently to each of us, but the sixth sense is so natural that there is no switch to turn it on or off, and it doesn't warn you when it is about to send you some vision or perception. It simply does it. Just like your ears don't warn you when they are about to hear something, they simply hear it. Sometimes the sixth sense can show up more evidently, such as in the case of premonitory dreams, thus making us suspect of possessing an additional sense besides the 5 most common senses we studied at school. As long as you plan to meet a person at the bar or anywhere else, you will not be afraid of your foresight. If anything, you'll pretend nothing happened, you'll deny it. Instead, when something stronger happens to you, like a premonitory dream full of details, and on the same day or the day after you experience the same situation in real life, this alerts you, as foreseeing the future scares a lot of people, making them think they are troubled. In fact, there are sixth sense abilities that are more pronounced or more evident than others, and this may make you think that somebody has it while others don't. Still, everyone has it, even all the skeptics, but some notice it, while others, fearing the unknown, would rather convince themselves that it is just a crazy sequence of coincidences and mass suggestions. Of course, predicting someone else's car accident or seeing from a distance with absolute certainty where the other person is and what he's doing at the moment, confirmed by himself, it's all suggestion, isn't it? It's just fantasy. Indeed, also the other person who confirmed everything has just imagined it all, hasn't he? Let's face it, when we want to deny the truth, we can make anything up, finding excuses that are even more absurd than the sixth sense faculties themselves. So you can either pretend it's all just a fantasy, or you can realize that the sixth sense is the most natural thing in the world, since it has always belonged to you just like every other organ of your body. Every single extrasensory ability is part of your sixth sense. When we talk about telepathy, premonition, or seeing from a distance, we are describing individual abilities that all lead to the same sixth sense. We can compare the sixth sense to hearing. Some are great at recognizing each sound they hear and define it as a musical note, while others only hear the mass of sounds as if it was a big noise. But the truth is, although they are both using their hearing faculty, the former trained to recognize the sounds, while the latter only hears without understanding what is listening to, thus getting annoyed. Whether you hear some birds tweeting or a bus passing by in front of your house, you are using your hearing faculties to hear both sounds, even if they are very different from each other. The sixth sense is basically the same thing. Whether you foresee to meet a person or you perceive the sentence is about to say, you are using the sixth sense in both cases. Taking the hearing example, not everyone has an ear for music and is capable of recognizing each musical note in every song they listen to. But is this due to a lack of hearing in each of us? Of course not. It just depends on training. A musician trains to learn to recognize notes, while all the others, who are not musicians, don't train, and that's why they can grasp all the musical nuances or recognize the different musical instruments, only hearing a single melody overall. The sixth sense is the same. When it's not trained, it's very weak and unable to realize what is going on around you. But when it's trained instead, like an ear for music, it starts recognizing what other people don't see, don't hear, and don't sense, gaining an extra gear to improve your life. Certainly, you're not interested in having an ear for music if you don't mean to become a musician, yet you're interested in hearing even if you don't like listening to music. Just like your hearing faculty or your sight, also your sixth sense has multiple levels of ability. Even your sight can be measured not only through various degrees, but also through your observation ability. For instance, you could be one of those people who wear glasses because of short-sightedness, and yet, when you have your glasses on and you're walking on the street or going somewhere, you can see a lot of detail surrounding you. And if a friend or a colleague passes by, you immediately recognize him in the crowd. Or you could be one of those people with a perfect sight, but nevertheless, when you walk on the street, you don't even see someone stopping a meter away from you to say hi. You look blinder than a blind man. This is because seeing is not just a matter of sight degrees, but you also need to improve your ability to look around instead of walking as if your eyes were covered. As with the sixth sense, you might have a perfect sight, the highest degree, but still you wouldn't see anything surrounding you. So much that a person with a very weak sight actually sees better than you do. That's why everyone owns the sixth sense, and yet only very few seem to really have it. So the real question is not why some people have the sixth sense and others don't, but why some people realize they have it from an early age, while others still don't get it as adults. The first reason lies in habits, or the environment in which we grew up. Let's make some simple examples. A child raised in an enemy-infested house is more likely to grow up with the ability to perceive these presences, or even to see them, compared to some other child who was born and raised in a house where these so-called paranormal events never occurred. Even though we all possess this ability within us, some trained it from an early age, on purpose, or finding themselves somehow forced to, while others didn't. That's why some adults are capable of feeling and even seeing entities while others can't. Another example is a child raised in a very peaceful, serene, and pampered environment within a lovely and steady family. This context has never put the child on the defensive, so he grew up in his comfort zone, perhaps without even noticing his sensory abilities, as everything he needed was already there. A child raised in a slightly more complex situation, which isn't necessarily a violent family, or in a tough environment which is a little bit harder to face, regardless if this hardship comes from within, family problems, or from the outside, problems at school like being bullied, etc., it is likely that he becomes inclined to look for solutions to his problems, even unconsciously, so much that he activates something within his subconscious, embracing one or more faculties of his sixth sense. For example, over time, he has learned to foresee where problems were, like knowing that if he went a specific way, there he would meet the bullies who would bother him. Thus, he'll know he has to change direction in order to avoid them, or he will start dreaming about the future, foreseeing in advance what will happen the next day, so that he can avoid making a mistake that would make him look like a fool in front of his classmates, or avoid a question at school. There are small signs if you think of it, but when you find yourself in such situations, the sensory faculties are super useful, and they protect you from lots of troubles that might seem very serious at that young age. So, discovering your sixth sense from a young age or when you're older depends a lot on one's habits and on the context in which each of us grew up. Anyway, the biggest mistake you can make is thinking that if you didn't develop your sixth sense in your childhood, it will never develop, as if it were possible that when you grow up you lose that mental organ. Actually, your sixth sense will be with you until the last day of your life, as it belongs to your consciousness and there's no way you can lose it. You can always increase its faculties by giving it more attention, or decrease its faculties if you keep ignoring it, but it's something that has always belonged to you. The only difference which we could consider as a great help is that if we were raised being aware of our sixth sense since our childhood, when we become adults, it would be easier to approach its different faculties, as we would realize that it is absolutely natural. It is just like a muscle that needs to be trained. Beginning when we are adults, instead, could be more frightening because you are not used to its abilities, such as predicting the future or perceiving what someone is about to tell you. So all of this might scare you. Fear is a big block which can prevent you from following an evolutionary path, even if you know deep down inside that your sixth sense is the most normal thing in the world. But when you grow up, you become more afraid, so you limit your sixth sense a lot. It's not different nor impossible for adults to evolve their sixth sense, even if they didn't start when they were kids. Let's be honest, what do you expect? Who cares if you didn't start during your childhood? Do you really think you can do anything about your present and your future if you didn't start doing it as a child? So it's really important for you to understand that the sixth sense is one of your muscles, which can be evolved even if you start doing it when you are already an adult. It's not dead in the meantime. Besides, you must be aware that the sixth sense is made of many different sensory faculties, and it's not the synonym of only one faculty. A lot of people talk about themselves as if they had their whole sixth sense developed since their childhood. This happens because they don't know what the sixth sense really is, and so they don't have the whole sixth sense developed, but just a small taste of a certain ability. Try to think for a moment about the ability of seeing auras, or the remote vision, or foresight, or telepathy. All these faculties belong to the sixth sense, yet each of them is very different from the others. Indeed, those who know nothing about the huge abilities of the sixth sense might think that all these faculties are separate, while all of them are actually part of the same whole, and therefore of the same muscle, which is called sixth sense. So, if you want to be accurate, saying my sixth sense was developed in my childhood is wrong, because all these faculties didn't evolve at the same level, and you may be particularly skilled in something, like your foresight, but not even know about the others. You could have had many foresight experiences and still never seen an aura before finding this academy. This doesn't mean you have only one sixth sense ability, you have all of them. It's just that during your life, you've experienced only one or few of them because your habits and the context in which you grew up led you to test only those ones, and you weren't interested in finding out all the others. But the sixth sense is much more. Indeed, you can decide to evolve those skills you already know and reach much higher levels, becoming a great master of your favorite faculty, or you can discover many other faculties which you didn't know anything about. For the time being, it's normal if you only want to train your favorite faculty. You only know that ability, of course. It's your favorite one, but if you could open your mind and try to understand the usefulness of all the other existing skills, you would definitely no longer remain stuck in your comfort zone, but you would decide to test all the others as well. Your sixth sense has all the skills, even those you have never heard before. Hence, it would be such a pity if you didn't use it fully. Along this path, I will guide you to discover all the faculties belonging to your sixth sense, so that you can realize the immensity of what you can do if only you decide to train. Thereafter, I will teach you the techniques to develop each faculty at increasingly higher levels, unknown by most people. It will be up to you to decide where and if you really want to stop, because if you start understanding the value of what you have inside your head, I think you will never be able to ignore it anymore, and you'll keep wanting to learn more and more about it. It doesn't matter which is your current level, or which you think it is, because I assure you that this is only the beginning of your true evolutionary path. To learn more about us, you can visit our website dimensionalconsciousnessacademy.com. See you soon.